Hey Gary, Paul Akers. So I'm sitting here at Starbucks, just got my nice little venti Americano, and I'm leaning against my wife's venti iced tea. And I got your email about what would I do if I was maybe starting over and just learn about lean with all my knowledge that I have now. And I think it's a really good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. So I'm going to take myself back in time for just a minute here and put myself in my small little one-man 2,500 square foot, 2,400 square foot wood shop and cabinet making business. I'm going to ask myself that question. What would I do? I'm just starting out and I just learned about lean. I think the first thing that just comes to mind is that keen understanding of the 8 wastes. I think that they were just like, I was oblivious to that. I understood maybe a little bit of excess motion and maybe walking a little bit, but I didn't really understand, the whole overproduction thing and then the transportation, and then the inventory was really all waste. And, we have so much waste in our facility now at FastCap, it's almost staggering. And then the defects, and then the overprocessing because you have to rework. So all those things, just a keen understanding of how all that works. And then I would have just seen all the waste that I was producing and everything I was doing every day. And then I would have said, oh, I totally get it. So then I would have systematically gone about trying to reduce my batch size on everything. So I would have kind of eliminated or tried to eliminate batch work, tried to refine processes so there was very quick setup, so I only needed to produce what I needed to produce at the moment I needed to produce it. Because back then I always thought to myself, hey, let's just make 30 of those, and then when I need some, I'll just grab some off the shelf and just go, instead of just leaving raw material in as raw a state as possible so that it was as flexible as possible. So there you go, there's one. So understanding the 8 wastes, leaving raw material in as raw a state as possible, so maximizing flexibility, improving my setup times and my processes so that when I had to do a specific thing, it was so easy to just produce the one that I needed rather than 4 to eliminate the setup time. That would have been a big deal. That would have been a really big deal. And then I think the next thing probably I would have realized variation. I would have realized that every time there was something different going on, and I had to stop and readjust and just fix things, I would have realized that variation was not just a variation. It was actually producing waste and slowing me up and denigrating, if you will, quality, because then I had to set up for a whole new thing again. I just would have realized variation at a whole nother level. So I would have done that. And then I would have got a really keen understanding of standardization. Back then I really tried hard to standardize things. I standardized the way I built my cabinets. All my top and bottoms always ran through and they rested on top of my side panels, and that was really effective. And I used pretty much the same screw all the time, but I had a couple different screws for different things. I really didn't go crazy about standardization, so I had quite a few variables which created variation. And I think if I would have understood quality back then a little differently, I would have felt entirely differently about the quality equation. Oftentimes I bought drawer guides and hinges and things like that based on what was a good price. And I think I would have just strictly used only the highest quality drawer guides, and not ridiculously high quality, but really high quality where there's no way there ever would have been a failure. I know I had problems with one drawer system I went to because I thought it was less expensive and it seemed like it would work okay, and I remember having to go back and replace a bunch of drawer guides that I implemented this new system with, and I realized, man, if I just would have only focused on quality, that would have been an amazing thing. And then if I would have realized from an organizational standpoint, the most powerful thing is Kanbans. I didn't understand Kanbans. I just kind of created a pseudo reorder system. I'd see a hinge getting low and I'd say, oh, I better reorder some of those. And of course I'd order a whole bunch more so I didn't run out of them again, right? And so then I built my inventory up where if I had a simple Kanban system, a card that said reorder, when I get to 20 hinges left, I reorder, 50 hinges instead of 500 hinges. And that's what I used to do. It was insane. I remember one time my banker came to me, and I was a young guy. I was like 25 years old. I don't know, maybe 28. And I remember my rep from my Mepler rep was delivering hinges for me, and he got me this really smoking deal on these hinges. You know, I think I probably paid like $1.50 a piece for the hinge, and normally like $2.50. So I said, "What the heck? Just give me 1,000 of them," you know. And so he pulled up in his hatchback car with this big, huge box of hinges, and we're unloading all these hinges everywhere. And I put them on my counter, and then my banker came by. He's actually a friend of mine. He was a pretty smart guy. And he came by, he goes, "Wow, you need that many hinges?" And I said, "Oh, I got a good deal on them, man." And he goes, "Don't you know inventory, that's just not, that's real expensive. You got to be careful with how much inventory." And I looked at him like he was crazy. He didn't know anything about manufacturing or anything, and the time it took to stop and reorder it and everything else. But if I had a good ordering system, I've had a Kanban system, I would have never had that problem. But instead, now my garage had to get bigger, and everything had to get bigger to house these thousands of hinges. Next thing you know, I was buying, you know, instead of buying 10 boards of melamine, I was buying 50 boards of melamine. I was buying units, and it was cheap, and it lasted me a long time, but everything had to start getting bigger, and then managing, and then I had to walk further to manage. It was insane. If I would have understood Kanbans, it would have been powerful. So quite a few things I would have done differently. I would have definitely, the whole concept of wheels, I was really big into wheels back then, to be honest with you. I had a lot of my stuff on wheels, but I didn't have everything on wheels. I had a Holzer edge bander on wheels. It's a massive machine, and I built wheels on it because I had such a small shop. I had to be able to roll it out of the way, and then I had a gigantic sliding table saw from Italy that I had on wheels. And so I kind of understood the flexibility thing, but only from the standpoint of I needed to move it because I was in such a small, confined space. So it kind of was forced mobility instead of really understanding mobility. And so you said, how would you lay out your new shop and everything? And if I was doing it, don't build anything in. Just look at the Fast Cap Tour video. You'll see we build nothing in, basically. Everything's just open, and then everything's on wheels, and everything's very simple. All of our desks, all of our carts, we make everything at a fast pipe system. It's very simple, and we just like that. And then we hold really tightly to those standards. You know, we have the fast pipe system, which we use for our desks and for our carts. We have our Kaizen boxes, which you'll see actually a whole bunch of those as well, for organizing things, and we really hold to that standard. We try to keep everything in those bin systems. Occasionally we go outside of that, but we're really pretty good about understanding not to create all these different variables, which you create variation. And oh God, it's just, when you understand standardization and standard work and quick setup time, SMED, you know, single minute die exchange, and Kanban systems, and flexibility, and nothing built in, and gosh, it's just a magic system. I don't know what to say. It's so magic. You know, I tell people I've been doing this for 15 years, and every day is like this massive revelation to me on how much better I could be doing things. You think at some point I'd figure it out, right? But no chance. It's so awesome. And it's just, God, I don't know. I always tell people it's like Edison's laboratory. I feel like I'm just experimenting, doing the scientific method, you know, plan, do, check, you know, experiment, run an experiment, see if it works. That's what lean is. I'm constantly analyzing, well, what is this? What's going to happen here? What's going to happen here? And then here's another thing too. When I approach everything now, and back then I didn't do this because I didn't understand, you know, there's a saying that Toyota doesn't approach anything unless they can cut it in half completely. And I think back then, if I would have known this, I would have looked at every process I was doing, whether I was cutting a piece of melamine or building a base cabinet for a kitchen cabinet or a sink cabinet or a drawer bank, and I would have said, well, it takes me an hour to build that cabinet with the drawers. I would have said, well, let's see how I can do it in 30 minutes, right? I would say, hey, let's see if I can do it faster, but I wouldn't even think to myself, hey, it could be done in 30 minutes. That's just like insane. But now I know everything can be cut in half. I mean, I don't even think about it. It's absolute, for sure, 1,000% everything can be cut in half. So, gosh, crazy. It's the craziest system in the world. I wish I knew it all back then, but I didn't. But I know it now. I often say to myself, I learned lean when I was 40 years old. And if I would have learned lean when I was 20 or 22, oh my gosh, I could not even fathom where I would be. I feel like I got the best life in the whole world. I mean, the best life in the whole world. And I attribute 90% of that to my understanding of lean, because it's just like, it's a rocket ship, right? It just keeps getting better. Everything keeps getting better. Even the way I ordered my coffee today, you know, just the process for telling them exactly what I want. I want 1 inch of heavy whipping cream to the bottom. I hold my finger like that so they clearly understand, they don't screw it up. You know, I just am very thoughtful about everything I do. And the net result is there's clarity, less variation. I get what I want the first time. The quality's improved. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. I tell this funny story. I might have told it in one of the videos recently. One of the frustrating things, when I brush my teeth, I brush my teeth in the shower. I like doing that, so I just get the whole water and just get a good hose out job, right? So I like to put my toothpaste on the toothbrush, but if I'm in a hotel, sometimes it will roll over, and I put a little suction cup on the bottom of my my toothbrush, so it sticks to the wall, and you know, the toothbrush doesn't fall over in an unsanitary place. Anyways, the bottom line is the toothpaste always seems to drip off of it before I get to it, right? And so now I changed the process. I put the toothpaste onto the bristles and squeeze it into the bristles so that it can't drip off. I mean, a simple process improvement that saves all that mess and hassle. And you think about for the maid too. You know, if I don't wash all the stuff out of the bathtub, you know, if it drips down, then she's got to deal with that, right? I mean, when you create a defect or a variation in something, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. It just never ends. Yeah. But when you're very precise and you do exactly the right thing consistently, and you focus on quality and predictability, everything changes. So, gosh, there's so much. I just gave you 11 minutes of what I would have done differently if I would have known lean when I was very young. So there you go. Hopefully that helps. Thanks, Gary.